Hi, this is Aaron with Beds by George. What I want to talk about today is some of the frequently asked questions that we get about the installation or working on our semi-electric bed decks. So one of the biggest questions that we get is about the mounting system. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes and just show that to you really fast. So we're going to zoom in here. Our mounting system is we have these brackets, and of course there's 4 of them inside the bed. And what you're looking at right now happens to be on the foot, or on the end of the side rail closest to the footboard. And so what you're going to notice very quickly is there's 2 holes here. And there's 2 of them because if you happen to put pads on the bed, you have to make the bed wider. So when you put the spacer bars in and put the pads in, this enables you to mount the semi-electric deck to this hole because the bed is moving out, getting wider. Without pads, the mounting point would be this hole. Kind of makes sense. Another question that we get asked is bracket placement. And these brackets, as they're measured from the end of the side rail in, are not equidistant. So as you can see, on the footboard, you can double check and make sure, but that's going to be roughly 6 inches from the end of the footboard. On the headboard, it's going to be more like 5 1/4. So obviously you want to make sure that you have the bracket at the correct end of the bed so that the deck will fit in correctly. And the final thing is, how is this mounted? So we use this type of screw system. It's a through bolt, and it bolts all the way through this. So it would come through the side rail like this. You can see the screw head, and these are the screws, 2 of them, that mount these brackets. For a Beds by George semi-electric bed, after you have all the wood parts assembled, then you need to put the metal deck together, and then that goes into the bed. So I'm going to take you through the basic steps to do that. So the first thing you do after you take it out of the box is you're going to want to put the 2 halves together. There's a foot section and a head section. And you do that effectively by, you need to come in an angle like this and make sure that it gets locked in place. And as you can see, there's little teeth here that have to be tied in so that it lays nice and flat on the floor. Nothing is sticking up. And then it's a relatively straightforward process. Here's where a lot of people make their first mistake. They try to extend these tubes by turning them on this rod, and that is incorrect. So if we can get a zoom in over here, if I hang on to the deck and I just pick up on the leg, that tube slides down. And I can rotate the tube as needed to get the hole to line up, but I don't rotate it very much because that threaded thing is already preset at the factory. Let me show that to you again. There's the hole, there's the tube. I pick this up, and now I'm lined up with that hole, and I drop my pin through. And then of course I'm going to lock it with a cotter pin. I do exactly the same thing on the other end. So at this end of the bed, I have the same thing. You can see I have the hole and the hole in the tube. I pick up on the leg, and that should slide and line up. If that doesn't happen, then there might be something else that you're going to want to check. And this is one thing that may happen. It happens every once in a while, and it has to do with down here at the end where the crank goes. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to show you. This is what it's supposed to look like out of the box. And a couple things I'll point out. You see how the screw inside is inside this. It's not sticking out here at all. Occasionally in shipping, this will shift. And if you see this sticking out in any way, shape, or form, that means that this is shifted and you're going to have a terrible time getting it together. Come on in here inside and show the camera on the inside. And you'll notice you can still see the nylon grommet, and you can see there's about 1 inch, and then you can see the hole. And when everything is done, the hole in the tube will slide over here. If your bed does not look like that, that means that this has shifted. And sometimes you can just jiggle it back in place. Sometimes you have to move this lock ring here. But this is the correct orientation for this. If this were to happen to slide in shipping, or if somebody beats on it with a hammer or whatever, you're going to have a terrible time getting this to line up with that hole. I lock my pin. Then I come back to the center. Well, Come back to the center, and I have a third tube, which is this center tube, and it simply slides. Slides freely. Again, I have a hole that I'm trying to line up. So I'm just going to move and wiggle, but I'm not moving this threaded rod very much, just enough to get my hole to line up. Pass this through, lock it with a cotter pin. Okay, I'm ready for the motor. To attach the motor is actually a structural piece of the unit. So what you'll notice on the end, there's images that say which end of the bed that it's supposed to go on. There's an image there and an image there. This is going to be the head section. You slide these plates out of the way. So once those plates are slid off, I find my little lugs or ears here. Again, making sure I have my head section on my head section, my foot on my foot, and I just slide it on, and just by, I've locked it in place. I simply slide my cover plates back on, and now this portion of the deck is assembled. So now the deck is assembled, the motor is on, and now you just pick the entire unit up and you set it inside the bed frame. This is obviously where you dial a friend to have somebody help you. And you simply line the legs up with the brackets. So once you've got the hole on the leg lined up with the hole in the bracket, it's just a zip tie. And you pass a zip tie through, and of course you fasten the zip tie. Just a word of caution. You want to have the zip tie where it's snug but not tight. And the reason is, you see this slot. Well, as you use the high-low function and the bed rises, the legs have to rotate, which is why there's a slot and why we don't use a bolt. So the zip tie will keep everything in place this way without being too tight and preventing the bed from operating correctly.